Welcome to the Sandwich Generation Podcast, a resource for adults balancing the dual responsibilities of raising children and caring for aging parents. Whether you're helping your parents downsize, explore real estate options, navigating caregiving, or looking for practical advice to help your family thrive, this is the place for you. Join us as we bring you expert insights, heartfelt stories, and actionable items to support you and your family within this unique generation.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Did you get worried when I disappeared from screen while the intro was playing? Did you even see that? I had to go reprimand my cat.
Oh,
well, you were speedy. I didn't even notice.
yes, I didn't even notice either.
Well, I was looking at the screen and I saw her walking in the background, and I'm like, I need to get my reprimanding. I don't know if this is nice to do for cats, but I just have a little spray bottle of water.
Yeah.
Please, cat lovers, don't hate on me.
I feel like that's what they tell you to do, right?
Right.
I mean, I feel like I've always heard that. I don't know.
But these cats, Nannette, I have 2 sister calico cats. They were a Christmas present last year for my daughter. And so they're not quite a year old. And they're insane. They're insane. They sleep all day and party all night. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Animal farm over here. Yeah. But they're like having children sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Very
Anyway.
much so.
I was just complimenting you on your beautiful background there.
Thank you. That's actually my sunroom.
I know. I gotta say,
nice and sunny.
Like a great sunroom.
Thank you.
You think will you be able to hang out there in the winter time?
Oh yeah,
like
because
4
it's it's part of the house.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's have you introduce yourself. I'm so excited to have you here.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here. I thank you both for inviting me. My name is Nannette Blake, and I am a family advisor with Indiana Funeral Care. So I help individuals prepare for that time when they pass away, so that their families don't have to be worried about taking care of that. It takes that burden off of them.
Yeah, which is a fantastic service. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
No,
say something more?
No, that was it for me.
How long have you been in Indiana Funeral Care?
Okay, I'm sorry. Say that again.
I was saying, how long have you been there? You've been there a while, right?
I have. I started with Indiana Funeral Care July the 10th of 2018. Prior to that, I worked for the insurance company that we use to secure pre-need funding. That's Forethought Life Insurance Company, which is now owned by Global Atlantic Financial Group. And then prior to that, I was with Forethought Global Atlantic for over 10 years when my job was moved completely to Batesville, Indiana. And while I was at Forethought, Indiana Funeral Care at one time was my customer. So I ended up there by a friend of mine was losing her husband. And she asked me about a competitor that was on Michigan Road. And I said, I don't know about them, but I can tell you about Indiana Funeral Care. So I did. And her husband, she went to Indiana Funeral Care. And prior to her going there, I called Sara and told her what I was, about my friend and her husband. And she said, oh, great. She said, by the way, what are you doing? I said, funny, you should ask. And so she told me, she said, when you pass your test, because in order for me to do what I do, I have to hold a life insurance license. For me, I hold a life and health license. So as soon as I passed my test, I contacted Sara, and then I started there on July the 10th of 2018.
Sara at Indiana Funeral Care for
not
clarity, not Sara McCord.
Not Sara McCord, Sara Thompson.
What is your official title then at Indiana Funeral Care?
It is that family advisor.
Okay. And I didn't realize you had to have those credentials.
Yes, because in the state of Indiana, it is again, and you will find this across most states, it's against the law for any funeral home to take money meant for future use and put it in their bank account and hold it till that time comes. The reason for that is if anything were to happen to the funeral home, the family wouldn't have anything to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so insurance is used because it is now the only thing that can grow tax-free. So where a person is in relatively good health, we place it in insurance. When they are imminent, meaning death is expected in less than a year, we place it into a trust. So that way funds are secure, the prices are guaranteed, they're locked in once they make their arrangements, and it just makes it so much easier on the families.
Absolutely. We hear that all the time, and which is part of the reason we wanted to have you on, because a lot of our listeners are the adult children or even caregiving for a loved one themselves, and personally, like a spouse or a partner. And I think it's something that's really important that needs to be talked about. And a lot of times I think people are kind of scared to have those conversations about pre-planning a funeral. I mean, it's kind of it's a depressing, morbid topic.
Not a
I
fun
guess.
topic.
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving. Let's talk about our funeral plans.
Yeah, let's plan our funerals. But I have heard over and over and over again over the years how helpful it is for families to already have it done, how it is smart financially. So I just thought we could kind of clear up some of that stuff and talk about it and hopefully help some of our listeners with that as well. So that's the point today.
So it sounds like I had no idea you had quite such a long history kind of in this world.
It goes even further than that. I told you about when I worked at Global Atlantic, Forethought Global Atlantic, and then coming to Indiana Funeral Care. Prior to that, prior to Forethought Global Atlantic, I worked for Crown Hill Funeral Home and Cemetery. So I was there for 3 years. And I went to Indiana. I ended up at Crown Hill Funeral Home and Cemetery by way of my husband's passing away. I am a widow. I've been a widow now for 22 years. To give you my story, well, it's a long one, but I'm gonna make it short.
No, we love stories. We love stories
for the
on
podcast.
This podcast.
I worked for a company called RCI, Resort Condominiums International.
I remember RCI.
Worked for them for 20 years, downsized on my 20th anniversary, along with 98 other people. We lost our jobs because we took a huge hit behind 9/11. And then 4 months later, my husband died of a heart attack. So when that happened, now before he passed, he had been diagnosed with colorectal cancer. So I'm the person that will have the difficult conversation. So one evening I said, okay, I don't want to have this conversation, but if worse comes to worse, I need to know what you want done. So we talked about it. And I told him, I said, we'll have everything at Crown Hill. They did such a beautiful job with my grandmother. And so that'll be done. But beyond that, I need to know, do you still want to be laid to rest in your Marine Corps dress blues, or do you want to be laid to rest in your, he was a Marine Corps reservist at one time, and then or do you want to be laid to rest in your UPS Circle of Honor jacket? Because he had worked for UPS, was about to complete 35 years of service when he passed.
Wow.
So once I knew who he wanted to deliver his eulogy, where it was going to be held, what he was going to wear, I thought to myself, okay, I'm ready to go. No, I wasn't, because there's so much more that goes into planning a funeral for an individual. Like at the time, I didn't know if he wanted to be laid to rest in the ground or if he wanted mausoleum entombment. How I decided upon we have space. Well, he's laid to rest in the Abbey at Crown Hill Funeral Home or Crown Hill Cemetery, and I'll be right next to him. But how we decided upon that was that Monday when I went in to make the arrangements, the funeral arrangements. I had my mother-in-law with me, my daughter, my stepson, and myself. And so when we went in and we started talking about the final resting place, I was like, I hadn't thought about that. And my mother-in-law is the one that spoke up and said, isn't mausoleum entombment more economical than ground burial? And the funeral director said yes. And at that time, it was. And my husband was the type of man that would have said, do whatever is cheapest and ask them if they have a coupon.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
mausoleum
for a
entombment,
discount too.
that's right. So mausoleum entombment it was. So that part. So that whole week, I remember us walking into Crown Hill at 12 noon that Monday. We did not come out till 4 o'clock that afternoon.
Wow.
And still everything wasn't done because I still needed to go talk to the minister. I needed to make sure other things were in place. There's a lot that goes on. So pre-planning makes perfect sense. And so once I went through that, I knew I did not want to leave that for my daughter to go through. My husband and I had one child, a daughter. I figure once was enough for anybody. So I was sitting down with my advisor from Crown Hill, putting my own arrangements in place. And he asked me, he said, have you gone back to work yet? I said, no, matter of fact, I'm looking for a job now. He took back my resume. I went in for an information meeting, went back for an interview. They sent me to insurance school, and I started at Crown Hill Funeral Home and Cemetery September the 30th of 2003 and was with them up until December the 2nd of 2006. Started at Forethought, because it wasn't purchased by Global Atlantic yet, on December the 4th of 2006. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you're just like the rest of us. There's some personal connection, some personal story that brought you into this crazy world of planning for things that most of us don't really like to talk about.
Exactly.
So you mentioned there were so many other things that you hadn't even really thought to talk about. And I think, I mean, I would like to know from my own personal, but what are some of those things that are asked in that pre-planning stage where you're trying to figure it out? Like, what are the things that are most important that you guys like to get down, but also what are some of the things that maybe people overlook?
You know, some of the things, whether they're going to have a funeral service or not, there's information that we will need that we collect so that it makes it easier on their loved ones at the time of passing. And that the first and foremost thing is what we call vital statistics. And it is name, address, date of birth, where they were born, social security number, parents' names, if they were in the military, where they worked and retired from, highest level of education, and then how they identify as far as race or ethnicity. All that information that we gather is used to build their death certificate when that time comes.
Right.
So by us doing it in a relaxed environment, that information flows freely. Whereas if you're in a stressed out having to get this done right now, those things don't always readily come to you.
Yeah. I can imagine people sitting there going, oh, I don't know. I don't even have that information,
Exactly.
you know,
Right.
in that emotional state. So interesting.
Yeah, I think we'll probably touch on the idea of making decisions emotionally or just in a relaxed environment, like you said, the difference between the two. And it sounds like you were so smart to foresee some things that needed to be done to prepare your husband. How did he react to you wanting to, cover this?
I always tried to lead into it where I could get him on board. And that was why I said, I don't want to talk about this, but if worse comes to worse, I need to know what you want done, because when you pass, I can't wake you up and say, hey, what were your thoughts on?
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have you learned any little tips or tricks when you've been working with families over the years on how to kind of
the
approach
funeral
those
planning
conversations? Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. When they contact me, they're ready. And I received a call earlier today. A gentleman said, you were referred to me by, and we want to come in. We're making arrangements for my wife. And what we're going to do, he said, my body's going to be donated. So a lot of them already come with an idea, but then it's the other things that we don't always, or that they don't always think about, like death certificates. Those documents are used to close out business for a person.
Yeah.
And what you need a death certificate for is property, whether you own it outright or whether you're paying a mortgage. What we find with rental situations, generally, if the family will go in with an original, they'll make a copy, give it back to the family. Same thing with banks. Banks will generally make a copy of the death certificate, give the original back to the family, because they recognize that those cost money. Any vehicle each vehicle that has your name on it, a death certificate is needed. Anything with a stated beneficiary where the person is going to receive proceeds after you pass. So if in a husband and wife situation, that's the pension plan, the retirement plan, the 401k, investment accounts, a life insurance policy. And then if they're still filing a tax return, one is needed for federal and one is needed for state to close out that Social Security number.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of people that need that information after you pass. I know from our standpoint on the real estate side, I've had to do that with a couple of my clients when they've gone to sell, because their spouse is still listed as, on the deed, and we have to show that death certificate. We've had to,
Absolutely.
So you've seen families who do plan ahead, and I'm sure you've seen plenty who do not plan ahead. Talk to us about some of the biggest differences between those two experiences, and maybe
my goodness,
everything in between.
Yes, I will tell you, the ones where everything is planned in advance, they're generally, when they come in to meet with the funeral director, it's yes, that the information that was collected ahead of time to build the death certificate is correct. We don't need to make any adjustments there. What they selected for themselves, we're going to go through with that. So that at-need meeting, and that's what it's called, is when they come in to make the arrangements for the person that's just passed away. It's an at-need meeting. Those that are prearranged, that meeting with the funeral director is about an hour and a half. When they don't have anything in place, that meeting can go anywhere from 3 to 4 hours, because they're having to pick and choose all of the things. The only time that it does not go that long is if the person says, we're just doing a direct cremation. Done.
Well, then I'm sure you also bring in family dynamics where you've got children or siblings that are not necessarily agreeing on what should be what should be done.
Say you're talking about the logistics, but what about the level of emotion involved in those two scenarios?
It can be really unreal as to how much, especially if the death was not expected. And people, you will find this with funerals, and is that if the person hadn't been in touch with their loved one that that much and it's up to them to make the decision, they'll either do one of two things. They'll either underspend, thinking that the person, especially if the person was frugal, or they'll overspend out of guilt.
Mm.
And then
I can see that. Yeah.
where you have his, hers, and theirs, as far as children are concerned, that can get real ugly.
Oh,
because everyone wants to have their input. They want it done their way. So that's the other reason why we encourage families to prearrange, especially if there are multiple children, because I will often ask the families, how many children do you have? And then I'll ask them, okay, which one is the dominant one of your children? And is that the one that you want to make the decisions for you? And more times than not, what I will be told is no.
No.
So this is the reason why you go ahead and you make the decisions and get it taken care of.
Yeah. I mean, I think it makes total sense to do that. And I mean, if you're somebody that likes control, it's kind of your last way to make sure you have control over those things. Really,
you know what? And that's a very good point as well. And you know what? And that's especially important for those situations where they're a couple, but maybe they've not legalized their union with one another. And, they communicate very well with one another as to what the other one wants, but they've not finalized anything. So in those situations, we urge them to complete a funeral planning declaration. And it's not anything that has to be filed with the court. It does need to be witnessed by two people, ideally someone not in the same home and different from whom you want to oversee things for you.
Like maybe an elder law attorney.
Well, if you want to make that expense, but it doesn't even have to be an elder law attorney. It can be two different people that maybe you're friends with or what have you.
Yeah, like a best friend or a
cousin. You could scratch this out on a napkin, have the two people sign it, and that's your declaration. That's literally how easy it could be.
Absolutely, because the funeral planning declarations basically says that I want this person to oversee this when I pass away, and this is what I want my final disposition to be. And then that supersedes everything if someone tries to come in and take care of anything. Interestingly enough, and you all may remember this, I think it was back in the summer where David Ring and I both were at your presentation. And David's, which I learned this, is that Indiana is the only state where the deceased has no rights. Oh. And so the funeral planning declaration comes in very handy. There was a woman that had prearranged. She was Catholic. She wanted
I remember this story.
I think we actually talked about it on here too, right? Where they changed everything.
Yes, her family came in and said, "We're not doing any of that."
Because she was Catholic and she wanted this big to do.
Like the full mass and all that.
Right. And so her family they were able to come in because a funeral planning declaration had not been completed. They were the next of kin making the decision.
And they were like, nope.
Yep. They knew all the money that was going to be involved if they did not follow her wishes. So they rather to have that money in their pocket rather than.
Oh, because didn't they have a party or something?
You know what? I'm not sure what the end result
or something. They did something. I remember Dave talking about it. It was really funny. It was like, no, we're not doing that. We're doing this instead. And it was like they went on a cruise or they took a trip or something like that. Yeah. But if she would have had a funeral planning declaration signed and witnessed by two witnesses, they would have had to follow her arrangements.
That's exactly correct.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting.
That's when it also brought up the conversation of, who are you planning this funeral for?
Yeah. Right.
And I thought that like that really resonated with me because I think about that all the time. Like, who are they planning a funeral for? Like they're not here. They have no idea what's gonna be done or said.
Exactly.
But are you wanting to do it for your own, for yourself or for your family? And I think that's important to keep in mind as you are planning. Like who's really gonna have to sit and endure this process.
Yeah.
And that's a good point that you bring up as well, because it's important for families to have the conversation, what will you need for closure when I pass away? And I just worked with a couple and they did that before I worked with them. They had the conversation with their adult children. What do you need when I pass away? And so from there,
I really like that that question. That's a great way to start it. What will you need for closure when I pass away?
Exactly. So,
yeah.
Wow.
I think it's a different way to think about it that people probably aren't initially
it's a
thinking
shift in perspective. It's a complete shift in perspective that we hear about it because we talk about it all the time, but I wonder, what the lay person who's not in this industry, what their perspective is. It seems like more people would be the type of, maybe not so much as the gal that planned this big over the top thing, but it just the perspective shifts from it's not a funeral for me, it's for the people that are still here.
Remain. Do you find that there are do many people bring their family members in with them when they're doing pre-planning, or is it usually just them and like one other person? How does that usually work?
It really is dependent upon the family. More times than not, I will work with a husband and wife together. There are other times where if the one spouse has already passed away and the other spouse is coming in, generally one or two of their adult children will come in and have a conversation. I had to work this past weekend, and there's a gentleman, his wife is very close to passing. Well, the children came in and they were able to get some ideas as to what they might want to do. And it was more so for them than it was for dad. They wanted to talk about some things, and as they were going along, they'd say, well, we'll talk to him about this. I'm sure we'll be able to get him to go along with this. So it's just having that conversation. So it can vary. It very much can vary. And then there are some kids, they don't want to think about their parents passing away.
Yeah.
So it's like, Mom, whatever you do, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
So, this conversation, our audience on the sandwich generation is adult children predominantly. This conversation is for them as much as it is for our seniors that we educate at the Indie Senior Living series that you guys so general. I can't even say the word today. Generously partner with us on.
Thank you.
Yes. But this conversation is as much for both audiences, right? It's the same.
Yes.
It's important for us as adult children to kind of broach these topics. And look, we're coming up on the holidays, and it's not to be Debbie Downer, but what a great time while families all together to at least just plant the seed, right?
Yeah. Or find out if they've already even, they may have already done it and you just aren't aware. And so it's, more of just a question. Like, have you guys done that? Have you thought about it? And if so, where am I headed when the time, who do I need to talk
what
to?
are we going to do? Exactly. I know for myself, before we got on to the podcast today, was telling you all that my mother is 95 years old. Now, my mother, I tried to get her when I first started in the planning in the funeral industry and helping others make their arrangements. I tried to get her to do hers because she said 3 different times once when we were getting ready to lay my grandfather to rest, that she wanted to be cremated. And this was long before I thought about coming into the funeral industry. And I paid attention, but half not paid attention. And then when my aunt's husband passed away, before my husband passed away, my mother said she wanted to be cremated. So I made all of her sisters stop at that point. And I said, okay, repeat yourself. She said, I want to be cremated when I die. I said, okay, you all have heard her. So when that time comes, I'm going to
try
cremate
to change
her. So
the plans, right?
Right. Don't
and like don't come for me when right.
So then her last sibling passed away in 2005. And we were at Crown Hill getting ready to go for the burial. And one more time, this is the third time, she says, I want to be cremated when I die. Okay. Well, fast forward, I become her guardian. I started at Indiana Funeral Care, and my siblings, I had two before me, they're both gone. She's the second oldest of my grandmother's 7 children and the last one standing. Wow. And I said, okay, you know what? This is all going to fall to me. Yeah. Let me go and just put her arrangements in place. So it's done. So it'll make it even easier on me when that time comes.
I thought you were going to say that she changed her mind.
Changed your mind. Me too. Because I'm sure people do. I'm sure people do.
Yes, they do.
What does that process look like? If somebody does, they have everything in place and something happens and they change their mind.
If they have everything, and we can look at this both sides. Let's say they have a full casketed funeral service in place and they say, you know what? I'm not going to do any of that. Let's just plan on me being cremated.
Yeah.
So then what we will do, because it is an insurance product, it's already paid for and it's irrevocable. So it means they can't cash it in. What we'll do, we'll update their file to note that when that time comes, this is what they would like to have done. Now, on the flip side, if they've just planned a direct cremation and they want a full casketed service with burial to follow, then what we'll do, they'll just pay the difference.
I was going to say, cost difference, I would imagine.
Yes,
yeah.
We'll just pay the difference.
So go back to the first scenario. So they planned everything out. Now they changed their mind. They can't be reimbursed?
At the time, as long as they are not on Medicaid at the time of their passing, that money can go to their family or whoever their survivor is.
So they do get reimbursed after they pass to the
That's
family
correct.
Or whoever they, okay.
And the key there is as long as they're not on Medicaid.
Because if they were, that money would need to go to pay their Medicaid, right?
That money would need to be paid into their estate so that Medicaid can go in and recoup their funds from taking care of them.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So that's how that family scratched mom's plan and took the big trip or whatever they did. Yeah,
they got a refund. As far as like I feel like cremation is becoming more popular.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you see trends with things like that? Like, do certain families all tend to kind of do the same thing? Because I know, like for me, most of my family is buried in a cemetery, and I'm not sold on that idea for myself, So it's like, I think people change, different ages,
generations.
Generations. Yeah.
Sure.
So is that something you guys notice where it's changing?
I will tell you, I noticed a huge difference. Now, when I worked at Crown Hill Funeral Home and Cemetery, 97% of what I did was a casketed service. I did only 2 cremations my 3 years with them.
Wow.
Fast forward to 2018 when I started with Indiana Funeral Care, and I will tell you that I would say 95% of what I do are cremations. It's not a full casketed service.
I think I remember Dave saying he had a statistic. I think it was like there are more cremations happening now. It's past the 50% mark than traditional casketed funerals.
Absolutely. Because and as you stated, I think it's more of a generational thing that as people become more and more educated, they're seeing things. To a lot of individuals, it doesn't make sense to put all of that money in the ground.
Yeah, that's me. I'm like, it's more expensive, and for what? I mean, I don't know. But
well, you know what? I wonder a lot about the land.
Yeah, I was going to say,
are we going to run out of space?
Some cemeteries, that's possible. Now, for Crown Hill Cemetery, because I work there, I can tell you that they are the nation's third largest non-government owned cemetery. They sit on 555 acres.
Wow.
Huge.
Yeah.
I had no idea that it was that big. 555 acres.
So,
you know what's interesting though, too? I feel like, before the internet, when someone passed, like that was kind of the way you knew their birth date and when they died, and this was how long they lived, and sometimes their children are listed on there, and that's like how you see the family.
You see their obituary
tree, and they're usually buried together, plots and that kind of thing. But that's changed where you can pretty much Google anyone now and find that information. You don't have to actually go walk the cemetery to see when so-and-so passed away. And,
there is a wonderful website called Find a Grave. So there are times when I will have family members that will say, I've got family in XYZ, but I don't know exactly where they're buried. Well, if I have their first name, middle name, last name, and I have a year of birth and a year of passing, I can go to Find a Grave and generally find them.
Wow. Whose job was that
crazy.
to put all that information in there?
Do they have like GPS locators on the grave sites?
Well,
I mean, that's crazy.
Don't laugh, Lisa, but you can have what is it, the longitude, latitude, whatever. Sometimes you can look and you can see just that. So
that's
you
crazy.
can find, and if they can tell you anything enough, you can find it. So it's not uncommon that I have gotten where they'll say, well, I want to, because I also help individuals with headstones. So they'll say, I want a headstone, and here's my family member, and this is where they're laid to rest. Well, if it's been captured, I can find their person, and I can find their headstone as to what type, and then do our best to duplicate it.
Wow.
And if somebody has been, this made me, something you said made me think of this. If somebody has been cremated, they can still have a headstone and be quote unquote buried the same, similar way, right? They just take up less space.
You know what? And that's another thing with cremation. Of course, there's more options than there are when you do a traditional casketed service. But with cremation, if you want your cremated remains laid to rest in a burial space, actual burial, you can do that. Now, what you will do, if you don't already have your cemetery space, you will purchase a full casketed burial plot, but only half of it will be used. So then your opening and closing should be less for cremated remains burial than it would be for a full casketed burial. And the other thing, because it depends upon the cemetery, we return the remains in a black plastic urn. The cemetery may require something sturdier than that for the remains. So we do have urn vaults. And the purpose of that urn vault is when they take in the heavy earth moving equipment to open up the graves around it, then
you don't want to
those cremated remains are protected. So that's why.
That makes I would never have thought about that. Just
okay, well, that just
pour me in. I'm good. No,
right.
Yeah, doesn't work that way, Sarah.
Doesn't work that way.
So
not that we can report anyway. But wait, that gives me that made me think of another question.
okay.
Can you buy one plot and share it with your family
That's what
members?
I was thinking
Yeah,
the same
Were you
you can
thing.
thinking
buy
that
one
too?
plot and you can have 2 family members in it. So
Only
if
two.
you
Okay.
so you could buy one plot, have 2. Now, if you go to Crown Hill and they still have estate lots and everybody says that they want to be cremated, oh my goodness, you'd have, you think about two cremated remains in one burial plot, you could have a pretty nice estate lot. The other thing too, because I'm familiar with Crown Hill, and there are other cemeteries that have what is called niche banks. What it is generally part of a mausoleum, or it may be separate as a columbarium, but then you can have your remains placed in the columbarium or placed in the niche bank. And it is noted your memorialization is on the outside with your name, generally the year of birth, your year of passing, and then they may have a little small vase for flowers. So you can always do something like that as well.
See, this is why pre-planning is so important, because there's
many
actually so many
decisions.
things that
Yeah.
you can do that
Yes.
people,
Don't
really
that you
don't
don't
know
think
about.
about.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned Crown Hill a lot. What
Mm-hmm.
is the relationship, or how does the relationship work between the funeral home itself and the
Cemetery.
cemetery?
Or,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you.
So with Indiana Funeral Care, because we do not own a cemetery, and now we are, if you will,
Yeah.
we're owned by SCI, Service Corporation International. So is Crown Hill Funeral Home and Cemetery. So
Mm.
as we have families that come into us, if they're wanting a niche space for laying their loved ones to rest or burial space, we are able to assist them, because Crown Hill Funeral Home and Cemetery essentially is a sister company to us.
Okay.
So and then directly north of Indiana Funeral Care is Oak Lawn, which is just on the other side of 96th Street. That's in Fishers.
Mhm.
That's
yeah. I was trying to think of that one. Yeah.
That's
That's
okay.
a big-
That's owned by Flanner and Buchanan. So
Mhm.
I can't help the family, but in terms of acquiring a niche bank or acquiring burial space, but I can point them in the direction of Oak Lawn.
Got
and
it.
they can help them.
So if they decide that's Oak Lawn, they want to be buried there, they have to make their funeral arrangements through Flanner and Buchanan.
No, if they're wanting to be buried there, they can still have their funeral arrangements with Indiana Funeral Care, but they be laid to rest at Oak Lawn.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Wow. There's so many decisions to make. Like you said, no wonder it takes 4 hours. I'm surprised it doesn't take longer than that if you haven't already done it.
Right.
Truly, yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's just a lot to think about and to plan for. And I know I mentioned earlier, I know a lot of people from a financial aspect, especially if there's Medicaid, someone's needing to get on Medicaid, that's one of the main ways they show to help, deplete their funds or spend down. They have to, sometimes do that. But funeral planning is a way that I know a lot of people do that, because they, it's not cheap. I mean, you gotta.
No, it isn't. But you're exactly right. And so with those individuals that have to do a spend down, when they come into us, we'll help them. And I just helped a nice lady last week, helped her get prearranged for what she wants. And then once I knew that I had a policy number for her, then I went ahead and produced what we call the excess funds letter for Medicaid, because when you're applying for Medicaid does a review of everything that you have.
Yeah.
So when
for
it comes
5 years or 10 years,
it's a
something like that?
5-year look
5-year
back right
look
now,
back.
5-year look back. So when it comes to the pre-arrangements, they will want a copy of the goods and services, and they'll want an excess funds letter. And that excess funds letter states, in effect, if there, in the unlikely event there's any money left over after your services have been rendered, Indiana Funeral Care will pay that into the estate. And that's so that Medicaid can
recoup
and get that money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it's an estate that is the executor is the state, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I think once they get on Medicaid, I think the state is the executor.
Yeah. They get, like, for lack of better words, like first dibs.
Yes.
On anything that's left. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting.
What are some of the, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, what are the most common myths, misconceptions, things regarding funeral planning?
Oh, yeah. One that I get is like, well, I want to prearrange, but I'm not ready to go anywhere. And it's like, okay,
you don't have to die tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
What does that mean?
So
Yeah, like what?
We really try to help them understand.
Clearly, you're still alive, sir.
Right. And we want you to stay that way. And as I always tell my families, I want you to prearrange, but I don't want you to be in a hurry to use your prearrangement.
Here, yeah,
right.
So we get that, or a lot of families will say is because they don't want to deal with it themselves. Oh, I'm just going to leave that for my kids to do. And I'm like, no, don't leave it for your kids to do that. That really is not a wise decision.
They say that so flippantly.
They
do. Again, we touched on it earlier, but I don't think people do not understand how much is involved in this.
Exactly.
Like, people say that all the time. Oh, I'm just going to wait for my kids. But we all know here, and hopefully more people know who are listening and watching this podcast, that please do not do that to your children.
No.
Yeah.
Or children, adult children. That's the majority of our listeners. Start talking to your parents or the people that you're caring for now.
Encourage them not to do that to you.
Right.
Yeah. That's just also, that's not a great way to your legacy. That's not a great legacy at all.
No, it's not, because I have yet to run into a family that says, I sure wish mom and dad hadn't prearranged everything.
Yeah.
No, everyone is so relieved that their parents took the initiative to get it done, and they're very thankful that it's been done.
Yeah, and not just from the logistics standpoint, but from the standpoint of, now I don't have to stress and worry about what they would have wanted. Like, they've done it. I don't want to try to guess that.
Or just trying to make all of those decisions under emotional duress. Like, that's just
so stressful. And
don't do that to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think I've mentioned before, it probably started, I don't know, 3 to 5 years ago. Every time I go to my dad's house, he takes me into his office and he shows me these file cabinets that have like everything. And each time he gets more and more in depth about things. Like, he'll be like, here's our stock. He loves Verizon stock. Here's our Verizon stock. Here's our whatever bank boxes and our bank accounts, and here's this, and he just goes deeper and deeper into, usually I'm like, okay, it's so weird, even though I'm in this all the time, but I'm like, all right, it's just weird talking about it with your parents. It is. I mean, I think we're going there for Thanksgiving. I might just be like, hey, so you show me these filing cabinets with all your stuff. Let's hear about your funeral plans.
Yeah.
And you know what, Lisa, you mentioned something very interesting. You said he talked about his bank boxes. So are these safety deposit boxes?
Yeah, safety deposit boxes. I just couldn't remember my words. I need to know where the keys are.
Well, here's what you need to know is that upon his death, they're frozen.
Yeah, you can't get in them.
You can't get them to him. So it would be a good idea the next time you talk with Jeff Stinson to ask him, what should I encourage my dad to do so that we won't go through that headache?
Nice
Yeah,
plug for Jeff Stinson. Did he tell you to mention his name on this podcast? We love Jeff Stinson. We
so
love
wonderful.
him.
He really is a great guy.
Yeah,
he is.
I that is important because, people think like, oh, I have power of attorney. Well, the power of attorney ceases when the person passes, and
a lot of
you
people
have to
call it that
wait
too.
till you have a death certificate, which that takes some time, right, Nannette?
It can. And
Okay.
here's the thing: when the funeral director meets with the family, and whether they're reviewing the statistical information that we've already provided, or whether they're having to create it from scratch, before a cremation can be done, before a burial can be done, they have to have a certified death certificate.
Yeah.
So once the funeral director inputs that information and they send it forward, it's up on that doctor that pronounced death to sign off on the death certificate. And sometimes their feet, unfortunately, can drag.
I have heard that before.
That's why it takes so long to get death certificates sometimes.
Yes, it can be just that long. Or trying to track down the doctor, especially like if they were the on-call doctor at the time. So when families have members that are in hospice or on hospice, I always urge them, talk with because they'll ask me, now when my mom dies, do I have to call 911? Can I just call you guys? And I always tell them, talk with your hospice coordinator and find out who will come to pronounce death. Now, I've always been told that it's the doctor that has to pronounce death, but every now and then I hear, oh, the nurse can pronounce death. I don't know that that's correct, but they need to know who is going to pronounce death. And then once they know that, it would be wise of them, if they know the doctor's name, go ahead and capture that. So if the funeral director has trouble getting the death certificate signed, then the family can also serve as a
reach out,
say, doctor, we need to get it done.
So that's interesting. Does the person who is allowed to pronounce a person dead, does that vary from state to state, county to county? Do you know?
It very well may vary. I don't know if it is state to, I'm sure it is state to state. As far as county to county, I don't know. And it even could be very dependent upon hospice providers, because there's a number of hospice providers that operate in Indiana.
Yeah, I think the medical director has to sign off on it for each hospice company, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I mean, I did that with my mom because she passed away in our home, and she was on hospice. So like the paramedics said she's dead, and then the hospice company, I think, then came in and said,
because that time of death has to go on the death certificate.
Yes, it does.
Time of death has to go. But then the funeral home, they actually came and removed the body so that there wasn't, you're not having to like take them multiple places. That's not, ideal.
Just so that you both are aware, anytime a person passes away unexpectedly, as I shared with you earlier, my husband died of a heart attack, and it was behind shoveling snow. Well, when the ambulance came and they took him to Methodist Hospital, because his death was deemed as occurring at home, he became an automatic coroner's case. And that is so that they could rule out foul play, that I didn't do anything to hasten his death. Yeah.
That was probably stressful for you.
Yeah, because the funeral home did not get his body, I think, until Wednesday or Thursday. And I met with them on Monday, so I don't think they got the body until Wednesday or Thursday. And I went in because at the time I was still old school. I did a visitation on Friday night, funeral service on Saturday. So we did the preview on Friday, but they had to scramble to get everything together.
So I just ChatGPT'd and I'm asking for the primary source, but Chat tells us that in the United States, the authority to pronounce death, meaning the official determination that life has ended, is governed by state law and sometimes local or at the county level policies or hospitals. It says generally doctors and registered nurses can pronounce death in most states. Paramedics, coroners, hospice nurses, and certain physician assistants may also have the authority depending on local regulations. So this is a local process. And then I asked it where it found its information because, you know, ChatGPT can sometimes trick us. And so there's actually an Indiana code. It's called Indiana Code Title 16, Article 37, Vital Records. And it talks about it there. So you can find it like locally in Indiana. It's iga.in.gov.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So probably every state has their own code or you know what can be done. That's that's
so interesting. We could go on forever.
I know. I feel like
we're at 55 minutes recording. We typically, Nannette, are around like 30, 40 minutes, I think.
Oh,
so
wow.
You've given us so much.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
I would say, you know, just to kind of like wrap up, what's your best advice or a couple little tidbits that you would say to give to those adult children, or just if they're wanting to plan their own funerals, like to kind of go through this process? What's your advice for them?
My advice is, because there are, of course, there's a number of funeral homes in Marion County, Hamilton County, all around Indiana. And sometimes individuals have always used a certain funeral home because that's what the family has always done.
It's like a family tradition.
Absolutely. And so my advice to anybody and everybody is look around, give it your due diligence, you know, go in anytime you enter a funeral home, the first thing that should be done, and this is FTC, you should be given a general price list and the casket price list. If they don't do that, walk out. And then
what is FTC? Just for
Federal Trade Commission. Every funeral home is mandated in Indiana to give the general price list and the casket price list. Because if they don't,
I don't think it would occur to people that funeral homes are susceptible to FTC regulations.
They are. And they can be fined. A secret shopper, if they come in and that does not happen, the funeral home can be fined $25,000.
Wow.
So regulated by the FTC, if somebody does not offer you the price list for the caskets and the funeral planning, run fast in the opposite direction of funeral home.
Right. And the other thing is, if they offer pre-planning and you move forward, but they are not putting it into a trust or an insurance product, leave immediately.
Because you're regulated, you have to do that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. It's against the law in the state of Indiana for a funeral home to hold their own pre-need funds.
And that's again in the state of Indiana, but I think you need to look that up for your state. Yeah.
You'll find that across most states. And that's to protect families, because you know, you go, if you search Indianapolis Star and News, you're going to find horror stories in there where people paid in money and they ended up
where did it go?
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
And it's okay to ask specifically like information about what trust, who or insurance policy, right?
What insurance company do you use? And as I always tell families when I'm working with them, we use Forethought Life Insurance Company, which is now owned by Global Atlantic Financial Group. If you go on to ambest.com and you put in Forethought, FORETHOUGHT, Life Insurance Company, you're going to find that they are a very highly rated company a very strong standing in the industry. They have a very good reputation. I can speak highly for them because I worked for them for over 10 years before my job was moved completely to Batesville.
Somebody needs to pay you for all of this advertising you're doing for all of these companies. No, but we love it. I mean, it's so much you don't know what you don't know.
Until you know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what questions to ask. Who would know unless you've done it before or you're in the industry that when you're pre-planning, those funds need to go in a safe place. And you need to research that place.
And for me, I am the type of person that I want you to know as much as you need to know to make the best decision possible for you and your family. I'm not one to withhold information, because when you decide you're going to do business with Indiana Funeral Care and I'm the one to help you, I want you to be very comfortable coming to me. I want you to ask any and all questions that you have, and I want to make sure that you're perfectly satisfied with how everything is about to go. Because as as I've told families before, this is, when that curtain goes down, there's not an encore performance. This is it. So we want it to be done right.
That's why we love you, Nannette.
Thank you.
That's why we have you on the podcast. Yeah. Well, if somebody is here in Indiana and they wanted to use Indiana Funeral Care to pre-plan theirs or their loved one's funeral, where should they go?
They can come to, they can call us at 317-636-6464. That is the number to Indiana Funeral Care. And they can always reach out to me. I'm at 317-440-7164. And I take calls in the evenings and I take calls on the weekend. So if they have a question, I want it answered for them.
And your web address? IndianaFuneralCare.com.
IndianaFuneralCare.com.
Okay. I didn't want to miss step on that domain name. So
absolutely.
Well, as always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Such good info.
Well, I hope it has. I hope it is very helpful to those of the sandwich generation and the parents of everyone, because it's important that it gets done.
The good thing about this technology is that this recording can live on the internet, on the interwebs for as long as they exist. And so I think we'll be sharing this podcast with a lot of people in the future. So kudos to you. You've been great to chat with and just a wealth of information.
Well, thank you. It's been wonderful working with you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.